we should be streaming. And turn on audition. We can just start. It's Monday, July 9th, 2018. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geek Nights. Tonight, microservices. Not nanoservices.
That's not funny.
Actually, I pulled up the Wikipedia on microservices. There's this whole bit about the criticisms of microservices and how nanoservices is the anti-pattern.
Okay, sure. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Nanoservices. That's right.
Yeah, it is the anti-pattern.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's a cyclical thing to be said there.
Okay.
All right, so let me look at the streaming dashboard. Let's go. You said you have
Stop watching the show. What's wrong with you?
Oh, Luke's there hanging out. Cool.
What are you doing? Go play some PUBG. You don't need to watch it. You got better things you could do right now.
Later this week, I will finally have time to play PUBG with you guys. I've been too busy. Not just playing Overwatch. I was working on some stuff.
It's weird when I played with them, we didn't do very well.
Yeah.
With Luke and Dazzle, we did not do well. But then I went and played with randos, and we got as far as third place.
Oh.
Like our team was in third place. There were three of us, all pretty close in a tiny circle, and then some super person came and killed us all.
Yeah, I don't know how to get good at the circle.
So that person was in second place or first. I don't know. I don't know which one.
All right, I'm just gonna start. So you can start with your opening bit, whatever it is. Whenever you're ready.
Oh, okay. So biking home like you do.
Like you do.
The source of all opening bits, the bike home.
Yep. In the summer,
or the subway ride home.
In the summer, it's us traveling through the city, and in the winter, it's me skiing.
And because I live at the center of the universe, I bike past the United Nations on the way home.
Yep, which is often a problem.
So
they really need to make a bike path behind the UN.
They're gonna event 2030, whatever.
Someday.
Anyway, and I pass by. There's the Japan Society, and there's the park across the street. One of the nice places you can hang out there. Well, what's her name? What's her name?
I know the place you're talking about.
What's her name? I can't remember her name. The actress. Hepburn. There's the Hepburn Park with the flowers you can walk through. Anyway, so that particular spot next to that little outdoor snacky restaurant place.
There's usually people protesting there.
There's usually people protesting there.
It's usually anti-Falun, or it's pro-Falun Gong.
No, I haven't seen them in all year.
Really?
No.
So I haven't biked past there yet this year.
Okay, anyway.
But last year it was always that Falun Gong
My favorite
group.
guy that I see, who I haven't seen in a few weeks, I've only seen him maybe 3 times, and that was like last month, is a very Orthodox Jew guy who is protesting against Israel because they're doing inhuman things to Palestinian people. That's my guy.
I'm with them.
I saw some people protesting something last week. I didn't know if it was, what they were doing was good or bad. I couldn't tell because it was in some other language, and I don't know enough about it.
I have multiple times, just recently, like in the last couple of years, run into protests in the city where I can't tell if they're for or anti whatever, like SCUB, like whatever.
Yep.
I don't know what their position is. I know they care about SCUB, but I cannot tell if they're for it or against it.
Right. So not at the UN, but last week outside of your apartment building, because the Ecuadorian consulate is right outside Rim's apartment, and there were people protesting, and I figured out what they're protesting.
All right.
The former president of Ecuador, Correa, right, was arrested, or was at least, I think a court ordered his arrest. I don't know if he was actually arrested yet, but a court ordered his arrest because they were claiming he was involved with a failed kidnapping of a political opponent. And I don't know if Correa was a good guy or a bad guy, or if he kidnapped anyone or not, so I don't know which side of this is right. But the people who were protesting outside, they had signs that were like, "I am Correa." They were pro-Correa.
Okay,
they were upset that he was being attacked by the current government of Ecuador in some way. But today, outside the UN, was a very easy to understand protest. It was a pro-immigrant, stop locking up children protest.
All right.
And as I'm biking past, I give him I ring my bell, ding, ding, ding.
Yeah.
Just ring my bell, and I keep going, and I'm just biking. And the guy biking behind me, so it's a guy who's progressive enough to bike.
I'm assuming that where the story is going is that this dude is a piece of shit.
This dude is a piece of shit.
All right. Does he punch him in the dick?
No.
Okay.
I was biking.
I feel like punching someone.
I tried to goad him into punching me in the dick, hoping that he would end up in jail, but that did not happen. Anyway,
all right.
I hear behind me, "Hey, why don't you come here legally?" And I say, "Hey, shut the fuck up, asshole."
Yep.
I should take your children and lock them up in a concentration camp, right? So we just do some yelling, but then here's the part where I failed, yet I also learned.
All right, because I remember my similar story where I told that Nazi guy to shut up.
Because basically, I'm busy biking, right, on First Avenue.
Yeah.
Most of my concentration is on don't die, right?
Yep, and First Avenue ain't the most dangerous, but it ain't the least
well,
dangerous.
we're in a bike lane. Anyway, my concentration is on don't die, first of all, right? From cars. Not from this guy. I'm not worried about this guy killing me. And basically, you know, his argument was, right? He was obviously skilled in the art of street arguing.
It's almost like this happens on a regular basis.
I know. He said, "Do you leave your doors unlocked at night?" Right? Trying to imply that letting people into America from other countries is like leaving our doors unlocked.
You know what really amazes me the most about these piece of shit people is that it's like they all go to the same website and memorize like the same 6 talking points.
So since I'm just trying not to die, I just yell some things like, "Let them all in. I don't believe in countries. Yeah, you want to come over to my apartment?"
I've learned that's the right way to go because
I'm like, oh, I'm sure your grandparents, they're from America. You Native American, bro. You know that kind of shit.
Because I realized
right?
long ago that pretty much anyone who has this kind of opinion is already beyond reasoned debate. So you might as well just double down on a position that's important to them and go.
But anyway,
into
this guy
out.
did not continue following me to continue the argument, and it's a good thing he did not because when I was on the bridge, of course, then you think of the best rebuttal when you're on the bridge. So if anyone encounters anyone who uses the argument, when you're talking about immigration, of do you leave your doors locked at night? If anyone uses that argument, here's what you say. You ready? Here's what you say. You say, yes, but if someone knocks on my door because they're the victim of domestic violence and they need help and you're trying to rescue them, you open the fucking door.
Yeah.
That's your argument.
There you go.
So if anybody runs into that asshole making the same argument, now you can say that right away and not think of it when you're on the bridge and the asshole's far gone.
Considering where that asshole roams, I feel like we're both likely to encounter him again.
It's just,
I might encounter him.
I didn't really look at him because he was behind me and he didn't catch up.
I can say
he could only catch me with his yell.
That Nazi piece of shit guy that I yelled at a while ago, never saw him again after the cops showed up.
Oh, also a side story. I saw a tweet of a photo from Anime Expo of a Deadpool Nazi cosplay. Why is there no video of Deadpool Nazi being punched?
Yeah.
This is a problem. Anime Expo, get your shit together.
At least kick him out.
I don't fucking know. But
I mean, if
you are wearing a Nazi cosplay at a convention that I go to, right, you are now going to be punched by me and everyone I know who is at the convention.
I mean,
I'll even punch you at PAX and get kicked out of PAX.
It'd be worth it.
Yeah.
I would sacrifice that.
So
it's, I guess the
even though one of the rules of PAX is no punching and kicking, but they're breaking the rule of don't harass anyone.
Exactly.
So it is okay to punch and kick.
But more importantly, one could argue that the advocacy of far-right positions is effectively violence.
I'm sure PAX will love to when there's a video of an enforcer punching the lights out of a Nazi.
Yep. I'm just very
or attempting to and possibly failing.
I'm very much okay with the current stance of basically everyone reasonable.
I might go. I might go take my enforcer shirt off and then go punch them.
Yeah, that way PAX doesn't get in trouble. That was just us.
Or take the enforcer shirt off and strangle them with it.
Well, or you just make a note of him. You'll see him around the counter.
If anyone knows any defense lawyers that will let me go to court, admit guilt, and ask for nullification, let me know their number, because that's my plan.
Yep. Important point in the era where we have to fight fascists. We used to talk about this a lot on GeekNights back in like 2006. Bring it up again right now. Jury nullification.
There's an episode on GeekNights about jury nullification that is probably stupid wrong, and we are not lawyers.
Yeah, we are not lawyers. However, if you have the opportunity to be on a jury,
I just got a jury questionnaire.
Because there are Nazis
you can fill it out online now.
And the Nazis are being bold. If you happen to be on a case where someone punched a Nazi, you are perfectly within your rights to just say not guilty.
It doesn't matter what the judge's instructions are. It doesn't matter if the person actually punched the Nazi in this video of it.
And you do
if
not
you are
have to
on
say
a jury, why would they send you into the room with the 12 angry people?
Yep.
All right, to deliberate if the evidence and everything is beyond a reasonable doubt. Why would they still send you into that room? It's because you have the right as a juror to say guilty or not guilty as you fucking please. So if you do the video of someone just mowing down a KKK rally with an assault rifle and you can see that they didn't murder any innocents, then you can say not guilty, whatever the fuck.
Yep. Now, what you can't really do is say why you said not guilty. 'cause
No,
that
just
can get
say,
into-
just go, be on
just
the
be
jury,
like, "Oh,
and
I
then
don't
when
think
it
you did
comes
it."
to, just sit there quietly and watch the case, and then when it comes time to be on the jury, go into the other room and say not guilty, and maybe you'll hang them, the jury, not the...
That's all
Maybe you'll
different.
hang them, too. That's the only cure for Nazism we know. It worked one time.
So, in news that's less fascist related,
Uh-huh.
you might have noticed that. So, Europe has a lot of pros. Like generally, the European government is better than our American government, etc. But
Kinda.
the one thing that
Sorta.
Europe has always been
In some ways.
yeah. But if I had to choose between the internet and healthcare, but anyway,
It's not the EU that gives people health care.
yeah. But every individual European state does it to a better degree than us. But I digress.
I don't know. Maybe there's a lot of them. Maybe I don't know about all of them.
Yeah, pretty much all of them.
I mean, it's probable, but I can't definitively say that.
Yeah, our healthcare system.
I
is
don't know
unique
about the
in how fucked
healthcare
up it is.
systems of every single European nation.
But I can at least say this. The one thing that all European nations and the EU have been bad at for as long as I've been alive is regulating the internet.
Well, because it's not theirs. That's why they want to mess with it, right?
Yep.
They constantly want to bring in American tech companies and beat them up because they're trying to. That's the way they can attack America economically.
And the vast majority of the time,
Because they didn't invent the internet.
But European legislation and regulation around the internet tends to be really, really bad.
Yeah.
Really poorly designed, has lots of adverse consequences.
Well, that's because the internet was actually made with, American sensibilities,
Well,
right?
earlier
good
American
and bad.
sensibilities.
Well, even current internet is architecturally American.
Yeah.
Right? It's designed around freedom of speech and such and such.
At least for now.
Which
it's
is-
turning into corporate
Except in
oligarchy, et
right,
cetera,
except in
but-
China where they built a digital wall.
But if you didn't notice, this is the kind of thing we would have talked about a lot more on Geek Nights a decade ago. But there was basically this European copyright law that was going through like the European Parliament. And basically this law was utterly ridiculous. And most people have phrased it as this would literally ban memes forever.
Yep.
And it basically required ridiculous, overbearing pre-filtering of content, like to the point that the Geek Nights forum, we would probably have had to say that no one from Europe is allowed to visit our forum.
Okay.
Or in the very least,
We don't even have the cookie warning.
no, we don't. We're not GDPR compliant.
I'm not doing fucking shit. I'm just using the software for the forum as it's delivered, auto-updating it, and that's it.
Yeah, we have no presence in Europe, and we never will unless we flee this country.
My server's not in Europe. European people visit our site, and that's okay. But
If you're a European visiting our site and it turns out that our site is illegal, that's on you.
I will obey. I will keep the website and all of our technology in the country that is most, convenient. And that is where it always shall be.
So the reason I'm talking about this today is because you'll notice that I have two articles here that have the exact same image, and one of them is New EU Copyright Filtering Law Threatens the Internet as We Know It from June 19th. Let's fast forward less than a month to 3 days ago. EU sends controversial internet copyright reform back to the drawing board.
Good.
For the first goddamn time ever, they actually voted no on one of these ridiculous internet laws.
Well, there was, I think, a big push in the EU and also by even European tech companies against this, right?
So I looked into it a little more, and it seems like
sort of how we managed to make some sort of push against the CBD TPA type things.
Yep.
Or SOPA,
the fact that
the
I can still
SOPAs
say
and
CBD TPA, and
the
I still remember
SOPAs and
exactly what it stands
the
for.
SOPAs and the PIPAs and all those things we
Yep.
managed to defeat every time somehow, except net neutrality, which we couldn't defeat because that wasn't a matter of Congress.
Yep. But
It's easy to, because all those times that we beat those things in the U.S., it was a matter of making Congress not do something, which is surprisingly easy. But now, in order to fix net neutrality, we have to make Congress do something, and that is very difficult.
so basically, this was at least temporarily shot down. So if it comes back, it'll have to come back in a very different form. Best I can tell, tech companies were pretty much entirely against it. The general populace, once they heard about it, were generally against it. And the only people I can seem to find that are for it are major content producers like publishing firms.
Yeah.
But specifically, there's all these articles that seem like they're astroturfed that are basically, what was it? I found one specific one, this article. It was blah, 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 blah. The National Book Council is really, really mad that this failed. And I can't really, they don't make an argument as to how this would have
I guess the
actually helped
National
them.
Silent Film Council is upset too.
Yep.
perhaps the National Horse and Buggy Whip Council.
But their article is making the rounds as unsuccessful EU copyright vote inflicted irreparable damage.
You're not any worse than you were using the argument that they make for getting rid of net neutrality. You're not any worse off than you were yesterday.
Yep. But we actually won one in Europe, and I'm kind of happy about that.
For now.
Because
they'll probably edit it and bring it back.
There needs to be massive copyright reform, but this law in particular would have made basic things that any layperson using the internet expects to be able to do onerous to the point that they just would not happen in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a big part of how this was shot down was that this is one of the first times that, like even GDPR, a lot of Western tech companies, the smaller ones cut off their service in Europe or shut down services, but the big ones generally complied with it. The big ones in this case seem to be implying that they would just literally cut off Europe rather than comply with this ridiculous law.
All right, so here's the news. Ready? So Valve, the Steam Valve, right? It's not a gaming news, the tech news, right? So, you know, if you go on Steam, there's a little chart that shows you like current game with the most players right now, stuff like that, right? And there used to be Steam Spy, which used the Steam API to get various data about games that was invaluable, especially to developers, to see what was popular.
Oh, God. I suddenly remember I was looking for slides for a panel I'm going to write for PAX, and I found an old panel we did where we have all these screenshots of like the top 10 games on Steam.
Those are so old.
I know, because it was literally Counter-Strike Go, Counter-Strike 1.6 for number 1 and number 2.
Not anymore. They're still up there, though.
Anyway, still up there.
So because, if you don't know, recently, like maybe months ago, Valve got rid of the APIs that use Steam Spy, and I think there were rumors they were going to do something different. They were trying to protect privacy or something. I don't know. There's a brouhaha, but people were upset because now Steam Spy will be much less accurate, or perhaps so inaccurate it's useless, or whatever. So you can't get accurate data now about which games are selling how much if you're just like a developer who's going to do market research or stuff like that, right? I'm sure the big players are still paying market research firms to get that kind of info, but little indie devs don't know anymore.
Yep.
They needed Steam Spy. It was valuable to them. Anyway, so here's a new news. Somebody went on the Steam API, and it tells you in the Steam API to or at least it did until just now. It tells you to an extremely precise degree, as in 16 decimal places.
I want to point out that is way more than almost anything I interact with in Wall Street.
That's right. It tells you, it did, at least until recently, tell you to 16 decimal place accuracy how many players of the game have achieved a particular achievement. So you could look at any game on Steam that has achievements, and you can say, oh, here's this really hard achievement, like beat the game. And it'll say X dot 16 places % of players have beaten the game. You look at that number and you say, well, wait a minute. The number of people who bought the game, right, must be an integer. It must be.
Yep.
It cannot be a non-integer.
You can't sell half a Team Fortress.
It can't be negative. It can't be 0. It cannot be a fraction. It must be a positive integer, right? And therefore, we can deduce, right, by looking at this very, very precise percentage and just sort of doing some math and also accounting for, you know, the way computers calculate floating point numbers. Maybe you got to add 1 or subtract 1 or, you know, 1 decimal place at the end or something.
Oh my God, I love how Counter-Strike Go and Counter-Strike Source are still up.
You can tell by extrapolating from those percentages what is that number? Like how many total people got that achievement? Because you just keep saying, well, if this is the percentage, what integers would there be this percentage of that would break evenly? Because you know the number of people who achieved it must also be an integer, right?
And it's like
what big integer divided by what smaller integer will equal this or what bigger equal this number. So then, from that, you can say, well, if that's 8% of the total people who bought the game, then the number of total people who bought the game is X, and you get a shockingly accurate number of people who owned the game at the time that the person did this, and as soon as they collected all the info on all the top games on Steam and published it, then Valve removed this info from Steam. But we have the info, which is what's important.
But bear in mind, this is not saying how many people are playing the game.
No, it's how many people have owned the game and have it in their Steam account.
So yeah, 50 million people own Team Fortress 2.
Right, you've got to take into account that a lot of these games are like free games. You've also got to take into account this only counts games with achievements. Games that don't have achievements aren't counted at all because there was no info. And also notice like one of the biggest games on Steam, which is Dota 2, is not even there. Right, which is, I don't know, does Dota 2 not have achievements on Steam?
I have no idea why Dota 2 wouldn't be there.
Yeah, so there's a lot of ifs and ands and whatnot, but once you, even with all those sort of, ifs, I guess, and whatever, this is still shockingly accurate if you're interested.
Now,
I find it interesting that Slay the Spire and Necrodancer are like right next to each other.
Yeah, well, I feel like they target the exact same demographic. And
I feel like we should just look at games with that number of sales figures
Yeah.
and just be like, that's where the good games are going to be.
But I guess the interesting part of this from a Monday perspective is when you're doing data security, microservices, all the techie stuff we do, and you're worried about data leakage, metadata can leak very complex information without you realizing.
Yeah, you can figure one thing out from another thing.
Yep.
Right? Or even if you can't completely figure out, this is a case where you can almost completely figure out one thing from a seemingly unrelated thing. But there are times where it's like you can just guess and be very accurate. If people know, it's like, for example, everyone knows the percentage of English names on average that start with whatever letter. So it's like you can sort of get really good guesses about things from like public information like that.
All right. Here's the newses. Let's see. Get the main bits up. Ecuador. Okay. Microservices. Oh, there's a bunch of people in the chat.
Go home.
Dota 2 has no achievements. There we go.
That's interesting because it's a game made by Valve. You think they would put achievements in it?
I don't know.
What's really interesting is actually people like Slay the Spire and stuff. Like people really care about the achievements.
That's always been the case.
I ignore achievements. I think achievements were invented on the Xbox, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
I remember the first time we ever saw them was on Xbox Live.
So I'll admit I thought they were dumb then, and my opinion has
only
gotten more negative.
I have completely ignored it. I've been around longer than achievements. I've been playing video games longer than achievements. I've always completely ignored them and never gave a shit and turned them off. So I don't even know what achievements I have.
Every now and then one pops up in Steam, and I'm like, really?
I turned off the pop-up.
I left it on.
Sometimes it can happen if I get a new Steam installation. I haven't turned it off yet. And I'm like, stop covering up my game. I'm trying to play.
One of the SGDQs, like, things started popping up from Steam, and it messed up a run.
Yep. That's what you gotta do.
All right.
I don't want to mess up my speed runs that I don't do.
So we learned a decent amount about Ned Kelly some time ago.
I don't know who that is.
We've talked about Ned Kelly multiple times on GeekNights.
Why would I remember that?
You have no idea who Ned Kelly is.
I mean, I probably will as soon as you start saying who it is.
So I will say, I'll give you a clue. He is orthogonally, distantly related to Farlap.
It's a horse?
Yeah.
Ned Kelly's a horse?
No.
Ned Kelly's a person who rides a horse?
Technically.
Ned Kelly is the Australian gangster guy?
Ned Kelly is the Australian weeaboo gangster.
That's right.
So
I remember now.
We went to a Ned Kelly museum when we went to the first PAX Australia.
We did, okay.
And we saw his fucking armor.
I remember who it is now.
The guy who made the armor. That guy.
Yes, I know who it is now.
So even then, I really only had a superficial understanding, and basically in my mind, he was just like an Australian Billy the Kid.
All I remember about him is he's like a a Western gangster who was a weeaboo who had armor in Australia.
The weeaboo part is very important and very hilarious, but
well, he was much closer. To be a weeaboo in those days, you had to live much closer to Japan.
Yeah. But I found this extra credits like history thing because they have a pretty good show on history. They did a good one on Catherine the Great, and I watch these occasionally. But I never noticed that they have one on Ned Kelly, and it goes into.
Are you sure it's accurate?
Yes, it looks pretty accurate.
Didn't we go to like a prison where they kept Ned Kelly, or like where
we
they
went
had
to
his
a Ned Kelly fucking museum.
They had his gold or something there.
We saw like
I don't remember.
We learned a lot about Ned Kelly.
I forgot most of it.
The Legend of Curly's Gold.
I forgot most of it.
But this video series is fascinating because the one thing I mistook is I thought Ned Kelly was in it for the money.
No, he was in it for the weeb.
He was in it for revenge.
Revenge against who?
It's complicated.
The anti
basically against the squatters. And I don't know a lot about Australian history because it's not relevant to my life. But basically, as best I can tell, I'm probably really wrong about this. The squatters were basically this like land-owning
They were the
gentry
McCoys.
that like squatters. Like
He was a
squatting on land.
Hatfield.
He was a basically a peasant
He was a
farmer.
sovereign citizen.
He was a peasant farmer who got fucked over by the squatters.
He was
dedicated
admiralty.
the rest of his life to getting revenge on those squatters and the cops that were in their pay.
Mm-hmm.
So, kind of good guy, also a murderer, didn't want to be a murderer. The first cop he shot kind of made him shoot him. It's just a really fascinating story, and this will tell it to you in excruciating detail. So what do you got?
So the Tour de France is happening right now.
Oh, yeah, it is.
Right? And it's not the easiest thing to watch, really. Even though it's like, I kind of want to care about bicycle racing because I care about bicycling, but it's still so tainted with drugs and also still so not that exciting to watch most of the time, honestly.
I like to watch highlights.
Yeah. Anyway, so in honor of that, here is a video of it's actually a series of like the most legendary cycling accidents. But this is the first in that series, and basically this dude, he's in first place during this race, and he goes over the edge. Oh boy! And it's like it's not the kind of cliff where it's straight down and he dies, so it's not an unwatchable video. It's not squeamish or anything.
Yeah, that guy's fine.
I wouldn't post it if it was like that because I would also probably vomit. But it's so steep though that he has a hard time crawling back up, and his bike just keeps on going.
Like he starts sliding. You're like, that doesn't look that steep, and then you see his bike just go. Whee!
The bike just goes whee!
And you see the guy going down to try to save him.
Nobody's going down to get the bike, so he has to wait for his replacement bike to come, which is way in the back, which means he went from first to finishing like many minutes back from where he would have finished. Yeah, it's a shame. So there's like a legendary moment from the I guess the past, but if you go through the series, there are many other bicycle accidents, but I can't guarantee that none of those are squeamish, so continue this video number 2 at your own risk.
I mean, I guess bike sports are kind of, for me, they're kind of like baseball in that I like doing them, don't really care about watching them.
Yeah, like basketball.
Yeah. Or
Also,
soccer.
bicycle racing is way scary. It's like bicycling is fine. Bicycle racing gets closer to skiing, which I don't do. These guys are going 40 miles an hour. If I get to 30, I'm like, uh-oh. I hit the brakes.
The fastest I've ever gone on a bike, at least based on my bike computer, was about 48.
Okay.
That was when I was in high school.
I think I maybe got to 38 going down a hill and was like, oh shit.
So we were in high school. And I was like with my family doing this like Jeep Jamboree, and we were going around doing like mountain biking and off-roading and all this nonsense. And I just took my mountain bike, and my family stopped the car because we're gonna take an exit ramp that goes way down the mountain. And I just rode down on my bike, and my family caught up in the car.
Mm-hmm.
And it was terrifying. I'm not gonna pretend it wasn't. But I bike pretty fast on a regular basis.
I really got to put some effort in maybe tonight and find this chart I saw once that showed the elevations of the Tour de France. And it's like we bike over hills here, and it's like you go over the Queensboro Bridge, and it's like it's easy, but it's a hill. It's like you notice it, right?
Like I slow down.
Yeah, it's like it's a hill. I gear down, right? These guys on Tour de France, they wouldn't even, that was flat to them. They don't even notice that their elevations that they climb, the grades that they go up. It's like the bridge here would be like a speck. Like it would look flat compared to the mountains they're climbing.
Well, that's it. So,
and this is why they're all on fucking drugs because no human would be able to do that.
I was poking at my Strava the other day because I noticed something. I have like the 100th best time ever going across the Queensboro Bridge.
No,
like anyone with Strava.
Maybe I should. Did you like huff and puff and try it? Did you?
Yeah, all the time.
Oh, okay.
So
maybe I should huff and puff just one time to see if I can beat. I could probably beat you.
So I don't.
If I huff and puff one time.
I don't think you could beat me.
One time huff and puff.
You know what a better way to do it? We should just race.
That's dangerous.
It's,
I have to do it at night when no one's there. So
yeah, we do the race at night. There's just
no,
the two
I have
of
to
us.
do no. I just do it on myself, and then you do it by yourself, and then we look at the time.
No, we just go next to each other.
No, that's dangerous. You'll go. Someone will fall over the edge.
That is not. It's a straight bridge. There at no point does it turn.
No.
There's no way we could have an accident.
One at a time.
Well, anyway, so I looked at what the difference was, and the difference between like my set, like top 100, and the top 20, wasn't that much. But then I looked at the runs of all the top people. You know what the difference is? I go crazy fast on the downhill and pretty fast on the uphill. They're going the same goddamn speed up and down.
I could probably go up real fast. I'd actually probably be slow on the down. I'd probably be like fast on the up and slow on the down.
But the fact
because going up, I have no fear, right? I could just put in the full huff and puff, and then going down, I hit the brakes because I'm afraid.
See, I never hit the brakes downhill on a bridge.
Especially on the very end. I wonder where Strava stops timing you, right? Because like there's that super steep part of the Manhattan side where it's like you got to hit the brakes, but it's like when do I hit them?
Well, if we're doing a race, we would definitely race into Queens. Because the output of the bridge is a lot safer there, I think.
Oh, but that feels too easy. It feels like the good race would be with the long uphill going out of Queens.
Yeah, the problem is
maybe we just gotta add both times together.
We could do that. We gotta figure out which Strava route to use to track it in detail.
I don't know.
Or we could just do it next to each other.
Maybe you could just have someone stand there with a stopwatch.
Yeah, that could work.
Oh wait, we need two people. Wait, one on each side.
Yeah, you know what we need? We need all those side characters in Initial D who are standing there with the stopwatches and the walkie-talkies.
I don't know.
We could do that. We could live stream it.
Nah.
Just have both mount our phones on our bikes and live stream our race.
But that's what we could do is you just put a GoPro on, ride, and then you put the GoPro on and ride, and then we can use the GoPros to get perfect timing by comparing the video.
That is possible, but that seems much more work than just biking up and over at the same time.
That's dangerous.
How is it dangerous? It's not like you're going to move left and right. You just take one line.
What if someone's coming at us?
If we do it at like 3 a.m., no one's coming at us.
Someone will be coming. It's New York. There's always someone.
Then we station someone at the other side of the bridge, and they'll like toot a horn.
We'll get in trouble.
Anyone's coming.
We'll get in trouble.
I don't think anyone would care. I think you're just afraid you're going to lose because I'm real fast. I think the downhill is what would kill you, though, because that's where I get my most speed, and I feel like you would touch your brakes.
I would definitely
Since you touch your brakes, it's over. I never touch my brakes on a downhill.
What about when you're coming to the end? You're going to just crash into the wall?
I just stop, really. But there's a reason why I keep popping spokes.
But then your rear wheel will go, woo, to go over the top.
No, I don't touch my rear brake.
No, I'm saying if you hit your front brake, your rear wheel will just go, woo.
Now I hit my front brake the right way, and my rear wheel lifts up by about an inch, and then I just come to a really fast
Yeah, that's
stop.
too much. My wheel would never come off the ground.
My rear wheel
I must accelerate and decelerate smoothly.
I very often let my rear wheel come off the ground. That's how I stop.
I do not do that. I'm always smooth.
You know what I think the real difference is? It's not just like I'm not afraid. I think it's literally just that I mountain biked my whole life, so I learned a very different kind of biking than you.
I also drive smooth. When you drive, you hit the brakes at the last second, whereas I brake a year in advance, so it stops smooth.
No, we both
I gotta be smooth.
We both know.
Comfortable. No rapid acceleration. See, high velocity isn't really the problem. It's rapid acceleration or deceleration is the problem.
On a bike, accelerate as fast as possible.
Maybe if I like get up to speed on the bike path and then get on the bridge, I'll already be going fast, so I won't need to accelerate.
Yeah, you think about that. The problem is that bridge has a U-turn to get on the uphill. Got that hard U-turn to actually get to the uphill side.
It's not a U-turn. It's more like a chicane.
Yeah, you do a U. You go around once.
It's more like a S.
It's arguably a really long chicane. Anyway, in the meta moment, the book club book is The Odyssey.
Oh, crap.
Well, I think we can finish it by Thursday. I'm going to read it this weekend.
When am I going to read?
If we miss it, we'll have to do it. What should we do the Thursday show on if we don't finish The Odyssey?
The part we read already. I read more than half.
We could do a Thursday show on reading. I don't think we've ever done a show on just reading.
Every book club is about reading.
Yeah, but like favorite books, least favorite books.
We already did all my favorite books as the book club. Oh, except for one.
I got so. Did we ever?
Maybe I should make my favorite book my
Sword
second.
in the Stone?
No.
No.
Sword in the Stone isn't a book. That's a Disney movie.
Well, yeah, but the book that the Sword in the Stone is loosely based
The Once
on.
and Future King.
Yeah.
No, you don't want to read that.
No, I read it. The last time I read it was 9th grade.
I read it also in a 9th grade-ish.
All right, what's your favorite book?
Just
The Prince of Nothing again?
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Anyway,
we'll probably do it soon. Read the book. It's good. We will, unfortunately, not be at Kineticon, which is this coming weekend.
Oh, well, go to Kineticon. If you're anywhere near Kineticon, it's probably still worth your time. You can play mad board games there.
Yep. So if you didn't notice, we are no longer the heads of the panels department. We just do not have time to deal with it
I don't want to
anymore.
go to Kineticon.
I do. I actually kind of wish I was going to Kineticon.
But this
coming
week, but this weekend is the Game Developers of Color conference in Manhattan,
which is also a very important convention that we will be going
at the
to.
Schomburg Center. I'm going to go there for like an hour or two in the afternoon.
Yep, I will do the same.
We went there last year and we saw some awesome games.
There were real good games there. Like the average quality of games at Game Devs of Color is well above the average quality of games at most other indie game conventions I've ever been to.
I agree.
Like legit.
In fact, that's what I said and you stole it from me.
Yeah, but I'm saying it again because it's shockingly true. And that says a lot about the inherent problems in the game industry. But Kineticon, if you live nearby, like if you can drive to Hartford, Connecticut, despite the fact that we are not there, and thus there will probably be a learning curve year for the people who have taken over for us, as happens in these situations.
You don't need to go to any panels. Just go and do the other stuff.
But the con has a lot of stuff going on. It's a bigger gaming convention than most gaming conventions.
It's an everything con. It doesn't pretend to be a not everything con. It says we are an everything con. They got sci-fi. They got superheroes. They got animes. They got pretty much everything nerdy. They got it there.
Yep.
If you're a nerdy person, you will have a good time. You can play video games. They got LANs. They got everything.
And also, I'm pretty sure
whether you're a grognard who wants to play a war game or a kid who wants to get hype on the Furry Parade or whatever, it's a good time.
Yep. And also, if you hear us talking about conventions a lot and you want to like join a convention, pretty sure the department we left behind is going to be needing chill people.
Yeah, if you want to be a convention staff person and you live anywhere near Connecticut.
Yep, especially if you want to be a PAX enforcer someday, but you can't get to PAXs yet, and you live in Connecticut.
Connecticon will never sell out. You can go there real easy.
And this is a con where you could learn how to staff because full disclosure.
Also, even if you just attend, you get so much bonus shit for attending Connecticon. There's free movie screenings. Connecticon is actually a ridiculously good deal. Content-wise.
Yeah. And rest assured, there's a good chance GeekNights will be returning to future Kineticons to do panels, just not to be running the show anymore.
We'll see. One day.
Yeah, I would easily go, leave.
It's mostly just because in the summer. If it was in winter, I would not hesitate at all.
Yep. But I'll probably I'll start doing the thing like I do ZenkaiCon, where I roll in, Friday night, do the con all day Saturday, and leave pretty early on Sunday, so I get the con experience, but also still have my weekend.
It's not really worth it to go all the way to Hartford for just that, unless I could maybe I'll visit my mommy.
I would do it just for that.
We'll see.
Also, Kineticon is one of the only cons I can do some of the content I like to do.
All right, we got any other meta action?
Otherwise, the next cons we'll be at are going to be
the real PAX.
PAX Real.
It's set in stone. I got the hotel, I got the plane, and I got.
We got backup badges.
We got backup badge. Okay, so nothing can fail. We will be there.
Yep.
We don't know if we have a panel yet.
We've done panels literally every PAX.
Every single PAX since 08, we've had a panel. I can't imagine they wouldn't give us one, but it could happen.
Just in case.
Yeah.
Looking forward to this PAX in a big way. I'm skipping PAX Dev. I don't want to, but I got a lot of shit going on.
It's for the best.
Kind of need those vacation days. I'll probably go to PAX Dev next year. But the thing that sucks is this year we actually had a really good panel I wanted to do at Dev, and I had to back out of it because I'm not going. So there's a chance I'll do that panel at regular PAX. That panel does not involve Scott. It involves other people. So if that panel happens, then you'll be able to see it at regular PAX without having to buy a $400 badge to go see it.
All right. Let's go.
Let's go. Let's do it. So microservices is
it's a fad.
It's a fad,
but it's also somewhat legit, sort of.
It's a good idea, but the more I've realized there's a fundamental theme in all of this kind of show that GeekNights does, and the theme is here is a design pattern. It is useful when it's useful, and it is a bad idea when it's a bad idea.
I think the main problem is that it's one of those things where you look at something like other fads like containers or NoSQL, right? And those are things that became fads or blockchains. Right? They're
cryptocurrency.
Right. They're fads, technological fads, that are really only useful for a small number of applications, like machine learning, only useful for a small number, at least now, right? It doesn't have this wide application, but everyone starts trying to use it because it's a fad, and then it backs off to the point where only the people who need to use it. But actually, most companies that have software development where they're building tools and systems for the company to use, which is the kind of places that I work. I don't work for tech companies. I work for companies as an engineer building software the company needs. Microservices are actually usually a pretty good pattern for most places because a lot of people make the accident of they build one custom system that's like for their biggest application,
Yep.
right? Like the thing that does the core of their business. And then they start building more stuff. And rather than build separate new systems, they just keep putting all the code in the same code base on the same platform, on the same hardware, on the same. And they get this one giant monolithic application that does everything. And that's usually a bad idea for any software architecture, no matter what your application is. And microservices, which means, in general, splitting things up into separate programs so you don't have just one program that does everything, is usually a good idea to some extent. The problem is not that everyone's doing this fad, which is usually the problem. The problem is that people are very, very bad because they've never built microservices before. Usually, they don't know how to design systems.
So they'll make the splits in the wrong spot.
They cut the services in the wrong places, and they end up making a lot of work for themselves because now maybe you've got two services or more that should have been part of the same service. They went too micro, and now you have to build a lot of glue because those services are constantly talking to each other, when if you just had put them in the same service, they would have been fine.
Yep.
Or they don't cut enough to get enough of the benefit, and they've got still things that could be cut down more.
Yep.
So it's like you have to actually be very intelligent, have a big understanding of your systems, and have a really strong understanding of technology to be able to cut and separate your systems into the right pieces that make sense to gain the advantages without causing yourself more problems.
I think the real source of a lot of the problems.
That's really the whole show. There's nothing else to say.
But people, I guess we can get into a lot of examples.
I got the best example in the world.
Oh, the one you told me before?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one.
I don't know if it's true, but it's good enough, whether it's true or not.
But like as many of you know, I have a very different job from what I had before. But so I'm in the position of managing like many different engineering teams and areas that are working on different things, like a bunch of different silos. And because you can't have, unless you're a tiny company, you cannot expect every engineer in your company to know about everything your company does. That design pattern, like that management design pattern, seems to happen when small engineering startup gets big and is not managed well.
Yep.
But so in that situation, microservices are a very good way to be able to maintain silos of expertise without having the opposite IBM problem of you've got a bunch of silos that are basically independent development teams that literally know nothing about anyone else.
Not
in the
only does
company.
it help technologically because you can separate all these systems, you know, hardware-wise and software-wise, but you can also separate your employees. Right? It's like someone can work on one service and not have to know about other services. If all your code is in together in one big system, then that means you have to get all your employees, no matter what they're working on, all coordinated in perfect unison to be able to deliver a product and put out a release, and you'll never release anything.
But instead, you can have a designer or a product manager on each one of those silos and then have a separate person or a separate group whose job is to do things that combine all those services.
Right, and if your services are designed well and you made the cuts in the right places, then there isn't going to be a lot of communication between those services. They're going to be so independent of each other that it will be super rare where any one of those services actually needs to like do something because another service did something. That should really happen all like a super rare case. So the best example of microservices that I ever seen, and I'm not sure how true this is, because this was told to me by an Amazon engineer over 5 years ago, so it could be completely...
But that's ancient history.
Yeah, it could be completely not true now, as far as I know. But it doesn't matter how true it is as to the reality of what Amazon does. What matters is that if it is true, it's still a really good architecture and it's still a good example to follow, true or not.
It is a very good example of the right way to do this.
So go to Amazon.com and shop for something. Go to a product page. You know, pick a product. Go buy something. How about a GeekNights t-shirt?
Oh, yeah.
Actually, that's probably a bad example because no one...
There is one, and you can actually buy. In fact, I actually have 2 more t-shirt designs, and I can now make hoodies. I'm going to make a GeekNights hoodie.
Right. The point is that nobody's buying this. Go to a popular product. Like,
hey, it's got 4 stars.
Yeah, what's something that we would recommend people buy on Amazon?
This fancy GeekNights t-shirt that comes in 2 different colors.
How about something that's actually popular and has...
Too late. I'm on the t-shirt. I'm not moving.
There's not enough stuff there for me to talk about.
Yeah, there is product description, reviews.
Right. So if you look at an Amazon product page and you scroll down, this page, like if you don't think about it when you're just shopping shopping, but there's a lot of fucking stuff on this page. There's the photos, there's product info, there's the actual e-commerce part where you buy the product, there's the reviews, there's the Q&A, there's related products, there's people who bought this also bought this. There's like, you just keep scrolling and the page keeps loading new shit. And it's like, there's so many features on this product page. It is insane. And if you try to think about it, like if you're a software engineer, how do I make this? Like try to fucking make this, even just like as a WordPress plugin or just as a Django
Dude,
app.
just try to make it as hard coding the CSS.
Try to make
like,
it as a
parts of
PHP
HTML.
page. Like this would be so ridiculous. How many databases queries do you need to make this page? It would like even if you had no visitors to your site, if you tried to make an e-commerce site that did all of this, it would load slow as fucking hell. Even if you have no
Here's
visitors.
a better example. This is a camcorder I'm looking at buying.
That's a good one.
So look, you got like so let's see. We got the images, which is like their area.
There's videos they got, right? There's a whole video feature.
Scroll down after the frequently bought together and customers who viewed this also viewed this. Here's just a whole bunch of fucking like product information from the manufacturer, like images and their own design.
Yeah, there's some system somewhere where the manufacturers and sellers go in and put that in there.
Yep.
Right?
Look
It's
at
like,
all this.
look how many features. So the secret is that each part, as far as I've been told, each part of this product page is a completely separate microservice, right? Somewhere at Amazon are a bunch of computers that are just the Q&A system. That's all they do is Q&A. Right? And there's another system that's just the review system. All it does is reviews. It doesn't do anything else. All it is reviews, right? And that review system, that Q&A system, that frequently bought together system, they have absolutely nothing to do with any of the other systems. You could take that Q&A system from Amazon if they gave you the source code, which they won't, and you could install it on your own hardware, and instead of attaching, the only attachment it has to Amazon should be, as far as I can tell, the product IDs. You could attach that review system to the GeekNights episode IDs, and we could suddenly just have reviews of GeekNights episodes instead of reviews of and we wouldn't have to change a single line of code. There is no dependency of that Q&A system on actual Amazon products other than that, the separate sets of Q's and A's are together based on the product IDs, right? And but wait, if these are all separate systems, how do they all load them together on this one product page? Well, there's a system, the Amazon.com system that runs the website. And what it does is there's somewhere is a bucket, an S3 bucket. And in that bucket, for every single product in Amazon, there's a file. And in that file is the HTML of the Q&A section. And the name of the file is the product ID of the product. So this Amazon.com system, as I was told 6 years ago, goes to these buckets, pulls together these already rendered HTMLs, right, of all these different sections of the site, and just pastes them all together. Now that's the only glue they have is go to a bunch of buckets, get HTML, and paste together.
Now that part. The specifics of that aren't really relevant to microservices. You could do it anyway.
No, what's relevant is the fact that they have done it in such a way. It's not that way is the best way or the right way or whatever for a website.
That's highly scalable way.
It's that not only is it highly scalable, but it means that the Q&A system can do it just, if you're working on it, you can do whatever the fuck you want. You don't have to worry about what Amazon.com's doing. If you're doing the review system, you can just do anything you want in the review system. Change it up, mix it up, and it won't matter because the way it's integrated together with the other stuff is like as long as the visuals are together, right? You're all good.
Now, one sort of, I don't want to say an anti-pattern, but a problem I see with this microservice architecture, with this website as an example, a lot of people will have this page basically hit 20 different microservices to generate all these things. Mm-hmm. And those services all have varying SLAs, varying quality, or one of them loads slowly, and then the page like starts rendering in weird chunks.
Yep.
And there's actually a really easy solution to that. You have some sort of middle tier or some sort of buffer, like in between your microservices. Like if you have a web page that's going to hit 10 microservices, have a mid-tier of some kind that'll hit the microservices and interleave the data into your rendered HTML.
I mean, the two hardest problems in programming are naming things and cache invalidation, right?
Yep.
So you basically, when you have microservices, that's one of the benefits. Actually, it's not a gotcha, right? It's like a benefit. It's like, oh, because I've separated these services, I can actually introduce IT solutions like caching layers and proxy layers and load balancing layers,
like that pre-rendered HTML. That's brilliant.
In between all of these different services. Whereas if everything is part of one application, running in the same processes and threads in the same CPU, and you want to load balance, you now have to code that inside your application. Whereas if you've got they're separated. They're on physically separate computers running separate services. You can now introduce Varnish or Amazon load balancers or any other all kinds of routers, network, firewalls. You can put any kind of nonsense you want in between to solve these other problems, whereas otherwise those tools would be unavailable to you.
Yeah, because look at this. Nothing on this page needs to be stateful in any way. If I refresh the page, it goes to a different service.
If you go to the Q&A section to actually answer, like if you go to do reviews, it'll often bring you to a separate page that's just reviews and nothing else on it.
Yep.
When you go to checkout, it's just checkout. There's nothing else there, right? You've gone, and now when you're actually real-time accessing a system, it's like you're only looking at stuff from that one system, other than like the nav bar or whatever, right? So it's like you can sort of tell from the interface of Amazon a little bit about the architecture behind the scenes of Amazon.com.
So how do you figure out where to draw the lines? Can we come up with generic guidance?
Right.
It seems like so many people
So
have
I've
trouble
already
with
talked
this.
about this a little bit, right? But you want as little talking as possible, right? So if you were to say do the Q&A system, you wouldn't have a Q system and an A system because they would have to talk to each other too much, right? These things are sharing the same database, right? It's sort of obvious. This is a really obvious case here, right? But when you actually get to your real business, becomes harder to draw the lines because you want to have a lot of talking between systems, right? So one thing is that you got to say, okay, there's probably, you have a monolithic application already. Look at what's already sort of going across, draw the lines where you feel they belong first, and then look and say, okay, when would something need to cross the lines, right?
Yep.
When I need to join tables from these two databases together, even though I drew a line between them? When would this need to make an API call to that? And if you can minimize that as much as possible, you're probably drawing lines in a good place.
Yeah.
The other thing you want to do is that a lot of times I notice the times the lines are crossed will be for reporting or for notification or for some certain use cases.
Well, reporting in particular.
Right? Right. Reporting is usually something that's like everyone has and will go across all systems, right? Because you want to join all your data together to report on everything. And what you really got to do in those cases is like, hey, instead of having this reporting and, instead of keeping things together to make reporting easier or separating them to make, and then making reporting difficult, make reporting its own service.
Yep.
Right? That's all over by itself.
And then it can query all the things it needs to get its data.
You can't join these two tables together because they're from separate services, but now the reporting system can, once per report, query all the microservices one at a time collect all the data from them and then mix it together. And now that's its own thing. And now you don't have reporting code mixed in with all your stuff, right? So you got to think about those sort of there's almost like, even now you've separated the different parts of your application, there are some features that they all have in common, and those features need to sort of come off of everything and become their own service.
Yep. Now, you also don't want to get too small with these services.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at the Wikipedia. They even call that anti-pattern nanoservices.
Right. That's when you cut too much, and now things have to talk a lot.
And basically it comes down to if you split a service out and you can't come up with any reason for anyone to query that service by itself, like is there literally no one who would ever hit that API without also hitting another API, then you've gone too far.
Imagine yourself being a developer and you're working on one of the services, and think about how often when you're coding a feature for that new service, like imagine, like, okay, I'll draw the cut here. Pick one of the sides of the cut.
Yep.
Say, all right, this is my microservice. All right. Now imagine a feature you want to add to that microservice, and then imagine how you would code it. Theoretically, if you think that encoding that feature for that microservice, say, would I be able to code that feature for this service without touching any of the other services, right? Or would I have to make commits to two services in order to get this feature built? If you have to make commits to two services to get that feature built, you either A, cut too small and made a nano service, and you should combine those two things so that you can make one commit to add that feature, or that feature that you're adding is something like reporting that should be its own service. And it should be somewhat common sense to figure out which of the two it is.
Yep. So if you want, like, if your career path as someone who cares about technology and is listening to Geek Nights, if your goal is to be like a chief architect or a CTO or a product manager, this is the kind of stuff you need to understand. Like, this is the architecture side that makes you very valuable to a company. even potentially irrespective of your actual raw computer science coding ability.
Yep. But having computer science coding ability will make it easier for you to, implement techniques and know where to, separate services and things.
Yep. Which again comes down to how big is your like some companies will have functional programmers separate from like
you also have to
developers.
really have to understand the application architecture of the different services. Like, oh, this one has a database, this one has some sort of caching mechanism, this, how the network is arranged. You have to have this sort of holistic understanding of
someone has to.
Right, of how the hardware and the software works, right, on a not granular level, but on, broad level, so that you can know, well, actually, I know that this application is constantly writing over here, to this storage thing, which means it should probably be its own deal, right, and just provide that data out with an API, and nothing else should be part of that, right?
But again, it also means that someone like me, I need to know what microservices are available in my whole like infrastructure, but I literally don't need to know what's behind those APIs. I can trust them. They'll do what they say they do, and I can use them as a menu of services to build the thing I want to build.
Yeah.
That's probably it.
There's not much else to say, but
I mean, you can read this Wikipedia article, though, as I'm skimming
there's been a lot of literature about microservices, and it's one of those things sort of like, it's not, testing is one of those things where people like preach it, but they don't do it.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of the things they preach are actually not practical, and like you can't actually do all those things realistically, and you maybe shouldn't unless you're doing medical stuff, then you should.
Yeah, but that's a whole different ballgame.
But microservices is the thing you can do right, and it's like you probably should do right, and a lot of the literature is actually right, most of it.
So here's a better.
But most people fail at it despite that, even though they're trying.
Here's the last bit. What are the situations where you definitely should not? And I think it comes down to, are you making literally only one thing?
Yeah.
Like, you're literally, a simple website is all you're outputting. Like, don't over-engineer it.
Yeah, I mean, well, even sometimes where even if you look at something like a WordPress blog, right? And somebody will get all these plugins on the WordPress blog.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, yes, if you were going to make the ideal application architecture, that would be microservices and not a whole bunch of plugins on one WordPress installation. But you aren't big enough. You're a tiny blog. So just fucking use the plugins. It's not worth because microservices increases your engineering effort. You need teams, and you need to be a certain size to build all these separate systems because it adds overhead, right? When you make more systems rather than have one system.
Yeah.
So don't go doing it, even if it's the right thing to make that system the best it can be, if you can get away with a shitty system and you don't have incredible resources to build a fancy system.
Which also implies don't do this for prototypes, experiments, proofs of concept. Like, but I think this is just more general good advice of don't over-engineer things that don't need to be over-engineered.
Yeah, don't preemptively optimize.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, because
if you ever find yourself saying, I'm doing this because in the future we might want to. Nope. That means do not do. That is not a supporting reason to do that thing.
That is the novice mistake.
That's right.
That's freshman year.
That's
sophomore year.
The future, don't worry about what could be possible in the future. Do what is best for the now, what is known to be true. Things you definitely are going to do, for sure. Design for that. And if in the future it does happen that you might want to, then change it.
Yeah, because if you're gonna, like, the time it'll take you, the opportunity cost of doing heavy over-engineering very early on compared to what it would take to, when you've grown and have twice as many engineers, to rewrite something old you built. Also, the technology landscape might change in those couple of years. I mean, look at how much databases have changed in the last 5 years.
Well, that's another great thing about microservices is that, you can, when new technologies come around, one service can that maybe, has time, the developers have time to work on something, can start updating to newer technologies and start messing around with stuff.
Yeah, you got a microservice that's backed by some old Postgres, and let's say there's some new hotness.
Like, if you look at the Amazon product page, right, it's like, okay, how much do people really care about the people who bought this also bought this, right? That's probably semi-important, but whoever's working on that, and don't kid yourself, there is someone whose job is, I work on the something who bought this also bought this.
Yep.
Like, there's someone whose only job is, I'm the owner of that part of the page. That whoever's working on that can probably have time to experiment and really improve and, work on machine learning type stuff and get some fanciness going on in there, right? Whereas the people working on, say, the photos part, they probably can't fuck around because you cannot fuck that up.
Yep.
So, they can probably have to wait and see, and you can have different systems running different technologies.
I guess one other concern is it does mean that you need, because usually, depending, I mean, it depends how big you are, but you might have people doing QA in each one of those silos, like for each microservice. If you have something that's driven by microservices, you need a holistic quality assurance solution. You need something or someone that is testing the integrated final page,
right?
Irrespective
well,
of
usually the services that integrate the other services and call their APIs.
That's where that QA is.
That usually is also a service and usually has its own QA. So that's where that happens.
Yep.
Right. So like if a lot of times, even if your own QA will say that your own service is all good, the consumers of your service might be like, you guys just messed something up, and then you fix it.
All right, I think it was a good show.
All right.